In this video today, I'm going to be sharing with you how I use Google Data Studio to create dashboards for my online blog content and my YouTube content so I can track the things that are going on with all of those different content sources. The reason why I'm doing this is because I want to show you guys how easy it really is, especially if you're using a bunch of Google data sources anyway. If you're using Google Search Console or Google Analytics, it's going to make it really easy for you to basically track all the things that you're doing online in terms of like the traffic that you're getting, what people are looking for, all that good stuff. This video is going to be focused on giving you an idea of what you could do with Google Data Studio. There are a ton of videos out there that kind of show you how to create the connectors and connect the data sources. It's like really easy. The goal of this video is to show you basically an example of what I do as a blogger and a YouTuber so that I can track my progress along all of these different online properties that I have so that you can see basically what I'm trying to glean from this data. So in my current line of work, people are always asking for charts and graphs and data sources, and one of the questions that I always get from the data scientists are, what are you going to do with this data? Like, what are you going to do with this data if we create it, right? And so that's the same thing that I would say to you. What are you going to do with the data if you go ahead and spend the 1 to 2 hours it's going to take for you to learn and basically grok how to create these charts? I've been using Google Data Studio for a while. I had a really bad version of the report and it wasn't as pretty as what it's going to look like today. Again, it's not pretty right now anyway. It's very vanilla, but overall I'm going to share with you basically everything that I look and track and then also give you an idea of what I'm looking at when I'm looking at these charts. I've blurred out a lot of the data that I have because I just don't want to risk being able to share the blog post that I create and then have someone copy. So I'm going to go ahead and walk you through everything that I have, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. Again, this is not a technical how do you set up Google Data Studio and create the It gives you an idea of what you can be doing in Google Data Studio to create charts and graphs for your blog or YouTube channel. All right, so let's hop on the computer. I'm going to show you exactly what Google Data Studio is at a high level and then also walk through all the reports that I have and why I have them. Google Data Studio is another tool that Google provides you. It is basically a reporting and visualization of data tool, and so what you can do is log in and connect your data sources. And so imagine Google Data Studio is literally this software that allows you to visualize graphs and tables and data, and then also then you have connectors which allows you to connect the data to Google Analytics, Google AdWords, if you're using Google Search Console or even YouTube, and connect that data so that you can visualize the data in the studio. But you have to connect the data first in order for Google Data Studio to be able to look at your data and create reports off of them. That's at a high level what it is, and so if you play around with it, there's a ton of videos online that kind of show you how to exactly do this. I'm not going to go through all the details right now. What I'm going to show you is basically how I created and set up my reports as a blogger and a YouTuber. So the first page that you see is Pageviews and sessions. As you can see here, I have a lot of different online content properties, blogs basically. A lot of them are basically tests or they're there so that one day when I retire and do this full time, I'm able to kind of spin up those initiatives. But right now, my goal is I have a lifestyle blog, a food blog, and I have 2 other techie blogs that I'm writing on that I'm trying to spin up now. But as you can see here, I have a filter on here, I have the title, and then I have the different blogs. I have the page views, the sessions, and then I also use Google Analytics to kind of then basically pull out Pinterest page views, because that's really important to me because I do use Pinterest quite a bit for my blogs to drive traffic to them, because that's one of the main sources, and then emails are also one of the main sources of page views as well. But that one's still spinning up, and I'm trying to figure out how to basically create a content machine for my email subscriber list, but right now I'm just tracking the number. So then you can see here I have trends and charts. So it's basically the same data from the previous, but I want to see it in a visual format so that I can trend whether or not it's going up or down, or basically making sure that nothing is too alarming from the data. If it continues to like track down, that means that it's telling me, hey, saying there is something wrong with this blog. Either Google doesn't like you anymore or something is happening where the page views are dipping. And so it gives me like a trigger, if you will, to kind of go do some investigation. That's how I use this trending chart is, hey, is my strategy currently working, or should I pivot and do something else with the content system that I have? Today, what I do have is a very systematic process in how I create content, and so I think it's going to take you guys a while if you're new to blogging to create that system. But once you create that system, meaning like you know what you're going to write about, you already have a system how you're sourcing keywords, you already have a system on how you outline your blog post and create the content. Once you get that going and you understand that piece of it, you can then use a chart or a graph like this to kind of alarm and monitor basically you to ensuring that your strategy is working. I also have one that is web story specific. So web stories is a fairly new content type that Google has kind of rolled out. And so I've been using their plugin quite a bit. If you guys want to see more information on that, go ahead and check out my web stories video. It has a ton of different content and ideas where I'm experimenting with, but I wanted to kind of measure my experiment, right? And so as you can see here, I have a lifestyle and food blog web story that I've created. And for the lifestyle blog, it feels like it's just kind of trending like up and down, and it's not as consistent as the one that's for my food blog. So I'm going to continue monitoring this. I don't have enough data to make any decisions at this point because I haven't created a lot of consistent content on web stories, but as I continue to grow that space, I'll continue to kind of see it. And this one is a blog that I haven't created web stories on at all yet, but I'm going to have it there just in case I decide to, on a whim, create web stories for that blog. And like I said, I'm only focused on certain things for certain blogs. So you'll see in some of these charts, like I don't have all of the blogs, and some of them I have specific blogs. And so that's very, very tactical because I only want to see the data that I want to see that is going to be impactful to my business. So next is my most popular pages. So I have listed out basically from Google Analytics what the most popular pages are for the last 30 days. And as you can see, like it tells a story, right? So I have 6 blogs that are on here, and you can see that a lot of the traffic that I get from a lot of these are basically from 1 to 5 blog posts, which is kind of scary to me, but I think it's normal in the blogging space. So anyway, my goal here is to just make sure that I track on things that might be trending, that popular, where I didn't see it before in last month, but I do see it now. Oftentimes what I do see is that a lot of my seasonal content starts spiking up during certain holidays or certain seasons, and so I want to keep an eye on that and just make sure that I am optimizing those pages as much as possible, especially the ones in like the 20 to 25 range. Again, I use this to tell me, hey, what do I need to optimize, or should I be looking at these titles to make sure that they're optimized to the best of my ability. So then I also have connected Google Search Console. Google Search Console also gives me some information around what they are surfacing up. Like Google is surfacing up based on keyword searches, right? And so on each of these, I have the impressions, the clicks, and the average position of my basically my blog against that search query. And what's really great about this is sometimes I can glean some ideas. So if I'm like ranked at the very bottom, but it's a search query that I have that is semi-related, but not really, I can target that keyword. And so the Google Search Console report allows me to basically take keywords from here and put it on my to-do list for my content creation system. Okay, so I never necessarily act right away on the content. It's more or less like grabbing and data mining some of these data points basically, and putting them in a system where I can just make sure that I curate it and focus on the right things. But overall, what this report allows me to do is look for search terms that I may not be targeting specifically, and then also understanding, hey, if it's getting a lot of impressions, why aren't people clicking on it? And so this is another way where I can say, hey, should I be tweaking the title? My biggest concern is basically if I do modify the title on the clicks, what it would do to my ranking of my most popular pages. And so I'm very careful to make sure that if I'm going to optimize a title because it has a ton of impressions, but it has low click-through rates, I want to make sure that it's not one of my most popular pages at the top 10, because I really don't want to mess anything up for my top pages. And so that's how I use these 2 pages together. And then YouTube, obviously, I'm still starting that up. I only have under 2,000 subscribers for each of my channels at this point. And again, like this is not a big source of income for me. My blogs are, but overall, you can see here like my page or my views and my subscribers that have been added in the last 30 days. I think I need to add subscribers on here, but really subscribers don't get me anything unless like I'm under 4,000 watch time and under 1,000 subscribers, because that's when you get monetized. But at the end of the day, subscribers really doesn't matter. It's the number of views that I get, and so that's what I'm focused on in this report. So what I take from this data is kind of nothing really. At this point, my goal is to create more content and then maybe drive traffic to my blog. But overall, like YouTube is just making me like a couple $100 every month. But really, I don't really gain any insights from this other than just tracking the views and just making sure my money in terms of video views. All right, so email traffic automation is another one that I have been optimizing lately. Email traffic automation, what that means is that in all of the emails I send, every link in that email will have a universal tracking metric. UTM is what they call it in the industry. And so every link, I have the medium, the campaign, and the link and the source. The source is generally email, and then I basically name all those links. It takes a lot of time, but if you create like a template like I did for Drip, you'd be able to see like what people are clicking on. For example, every week I try to send an email that's curated specifically for that week for my subscribers that I have for my lifestyle email subscription list. And for every link that's in that email, and normally there's like 2 or 3 links going back to the blog post, I'll create like a little summary. Hey, this is like an organization tip for XYZ. And then I'll put a link in there, but that link has UTM parameters for like the medium. So it was my lifestyle weekly email. Normally I have an automation one too, so I could have an automation one there. I also have campaign, and campaign is more or less like the theme of the email. So that one conversation was around organization. And then I have a link, which means like it's a link to a specific project for X or Y or Z. And as you can see, I can see that like this one had about 5 different links that I had, and I could see how many people clicked on each of those links, which is really cool because it gives me a very niche insight into like what people are clicking on that are actually interested in my blog, right? So if people are on my blog and they like that type of content, so then I can kind of curate some other content ideas if they really like that. And sometimes they'll ask for feedback in the email too. For example, here's one. So for this channel, for those of you guys who are subscribed to my newsletter and I send out emails, I've sent one on goal setting before. And as you can see, you guys are really, really excited about having the Vault, which is my library free resources that you can download. And so when I send those out, you guys are really interested in that. I have a link in the footer, which you guys also click on quite a bit. And then I have a newsletter blog header link that you guys click on for whatever reason. And then you guys are interested in outsourcing work. So those are the things that I write about on my emails, and then I just track them just to garner some insight on what people are clicking on. And so that's really how I use that data pretty much. All right, so Pinterest is another source that I actually push out a bunch of content for, and I have a system in place where I have descriptions and I have like images that are just posted, and I spend about honestly probably like 3 or 4 hours a week basically maintaining Pinterest. Even if I'm outsourcing, it still takes me like 3 to 4 hours to kind of automate Pinterest. I'm hoping that that number of like time investment dwindles down a bit once I get more of an optimized system in place. But so far I've been optimizing basically outsourcing writing the description and the titles, and also outsourcing basically the image creation, and that costs around I think $50 a week or so. Again, I'm reinvesting all the money that I'm making into the blog. Hopefully it kind of pans out in the future, but as you can see, I have page views and sessions that are based on Pinterest, and then I have the total traffic so I can have a comparison. And note that this the range, I need to actually go back and modify all of the date ranges so that they all match on each of the different pages. But one recommendation is if you go and create these reports, make sure that you have a filter for range on here, because oftentimes I see people create dashboards, but you have no way to kind of basically filter for what you want when you're on that report. So this is what the Pinterest one looks like. So really, that's all the reports I have. If I go through here, I mean, it's pretty simple, really. I mean, I could go in on each different channel, whether it's Pinterest or Google Analytics, and kind of click through all the buttons, but this gives me the views that I care about on a weekly and daily basis, and it makes it just really easy just to monitor the system. So overall, in terms of like Google Data Studio, here are my tips and tricks. When you pull in your data sources and your connectors, that's what they like to call them, make sure that you name them, especially if you have multiple blogs, because what it will do is it'll bring in and it'll say all website data or something like that, and then when you're creating your report, you'll see basically all website data, and you won't know which source that you pulled in. And so that's really important. And then know what you're going to do with the data before you create the dashboard, right? Like, you don't want to create a report just to create a report and look at the data, because at the end of the day, what brings you money is content and not the data. And so the data should inform what content you should be driving towards. And so I know for someone who's listening to this for the first time, you might not understand it, but once you create content, you will realize that the data should drive what you should be spending your time on. And that's really key to it, because before, when I was a new blogger, I was just looking at the analytics and I was complaining about why it wasn't increasing, and I kept looking at it, but looking at it, it's not going to do anything. Creating the content is going to help drive the data forward, and then the data will allow you to be more specific and targeted towards like what you're spending your time on. And so really, at the end of the day, if you haven't created your blog, go ahead and do that before you do this, okay? So also, lastly, name the metrics. So if you pull in, like, let's say it says Pageviews or something, and you wanted to call it something else, you could do that by clicking into the metric itself. But there are a ton of videos out there for it. If you guys want me to create a video, let me know in the comments. I'd be more than happy to help you guys with it. And if you guys want to have tips and tricks like this, where I share like just insights on tools I use at the enterprise level and bring it down to like someone who is a YouTuber or a blogger, I'm more than happy to do that. If you subscribe to my newsletter down below, go ahead and click on that. I try to send out an email on a weekly basis of tried and true tips that I've learned, and also things that I'm scrolling on, so that you guys can follow my path and maybe avoid some of the mistakes that I do. And I'm sharing basically my experience and knowledge with you guys free of charge. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to leave a comment, and I hope to talk to you soon. Bye, guys.